Welcome to the Iron Edge podcast, all about unlocking your full potential inside and out of the gym. My guest today is a returning guest from episode 5, I want to say.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first ones, yeah.
Maybe it was 3. Anyway, Steve Tripp of the Top Strength Project.
Hello. Back again.
Thanks for coming, Steve.
Well, happy to be here.
Appreciate it. We always have such good talks that I want to get you back on and sort of deep dive on more influential tidbits from you. So I wanted to start off with something that I saw the other day. And this whole thing, this is just like reel from Dana White about manifesting. And like, if you think about something, that's like the first step to achieving it. And like, you sort of set your goal on that. Is that something that you've used as a technique in like work, business, training?
Well, yeah, but there's like nuances to it, right? Because it all starts with a thought. It all starts with an idea. But that alone, like that isolated, is literally meaningless.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually being able to put it into practice and to kind of understand, kind of to lay out certain groundwork and certain tasks and perhaps new habits, new rituals that move you towards it. But another, Andy Frisella, that reminds me of something that Andy Frisella said, the next step after the thought is adopting aggressive patience and realizing that anything valuable is going to be challenging and arduous and hard to obtain. That's why it's valuable, because those two concepts are linked. But he talks about aggressive patience and basically understanding that it's going to take a long time. The word patience is misconstrued. Relax, wait. It's actually quite the opposite. And that's why I like his take on aggressive patience, because it's understanding that it's going to take a long time, but you have to apply, maximal effort day in and day out in order to get there. It takes a long time. The vision alone isn't enough. It's actually putting into practice and continuing to do things that move you closer towards it.
But it's also like having to be like, so acutely cognizant of the fact that you can sit and attack a goal as much as you want, but there is a timeline in that progression and that thing being achieved. And that was one thing that I struggled with a lot, like previously, especially in Strongman, especially in business, where it's like, I want the next step, but you can't just have the next step.
Because things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's a misconception where people, if I have a plan and I really think about everything I can and I really lay it all out, things are still going to come up, like inevitably, regardless.
Yeah.
And it's just maintaining a solution-oriented mindset rather than an excuse-oriented mindset. Like there's no place for excuses. Any situation that comes into your lap, you can either lean in towards finding solutions and developing resources and having conversations that will continue moving things towards it, even if it steps back a bit, or you can find excuses. And what's interesting about that is both come along with difficulty, right? So like it's very difficult to continue to move towards, continue to make right decisions, and continue to find solutions. But it's also equally difficult to give up and quit.
Yeah.
Right. But you feel that it's another Andy Frisella thing. I feel kind of cheesy. I mentioned him twice in the last 5 minutes, but it's like choosing your hard. Do you want it to be hard because you're suffering because you didn't continue to move towards the thing that you wanted to do, and that pain and the suffering that goes along with that, or are you willing to continue to suffer to move towards something great?
Well, it's that whole thing, like if you're already in hell, like just keep walking through it,
Yeah.
And that's the same deal. Like, I think you and I probably sort of relate very well with the business side of stuff, take training and Strongman and all that sort of stuff out. But it's like, there has to be a progression, the first gym you opened was smaller than what Top is now. When I started Cerberus in the US, it was a 50-gallon tote to where we're at now. Like, you have to have that progression, and being okay with that, I think, is a skill in itself.
Well, what's interesting, looking back, when I first started in that small space, and to put it within context, small is I had essentially like 3,000 square feet. So it was a 1,200 square foot back room, which had a rig, some Strongman equipment, some powerlifting equipment, a small 30-foot piece of turf, and then like a 1,200 square foot front area with dumbbells and some machines. And what was so interesting is, looking back, I didn't feel as though I lacked anything. I was so thrilled to have that. That wasn't only enough. That was more than enough to me. I really loved what had been created so organically. And I valued it so much, particularly like just like the culture and the community of having a kind of a smaller niche style facility. And again, I sincerely didn't think I lacked anything. And we're talking about having a vision, having goals. I never really had, I'm sure you, this may be an assumption, but you spoke about, Cerberus started at a toe. I'm assuming you were like, I want this to be bigger. I want this to grow. Whereas I was very satisfied.
It's funny you mentioned that because like for me, I was like, I didn't really have any preconceived notion of what it could be.
Or like big picture
I had
goals.
no big picture at that point in time. I was like, oh, I'm selling some stuff here and there to my buddies, and that's it. And then it was finally when it clicked on, I was like, oh shit, this could actually be something.
Yeah.
And there was always talks with like, the guys at head office in the UK and like where we were going, like wanting to be like a one-stop shop for strength sports and all that sort of stuff. But it never sort of clicked, and I think that's, again, like with being a business owner, I think you have to almost have like a come to Jesus moment.
Well,
you have to have like that vision.
The point we're going over, if I'm not mistaken, is I said I never had intention to grow.
Yes.
And I thought maybe you did, but it seems like you were in the same boat.
I was in the exact same boat, and that clicked my thought process, was that I think there has to be that like light bulb moment where you're like, oh, this could be more than it currently is.
It just kind of came, it just kind of came at one point.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I was so involved in what I already had and so satisfied and committed and just kind of focused on, improving what I had going on at that time without necessarily intent of doing something bigger.
Yeah.
And then what really made the push, if I had to choose one thing, because there was never really equipment and never really more space until Vanessa, who worked with me at the time, started doing Group X.
Okay.
And there was an alleyway outside of the gym, so we started doing it when the weather was nice. She always had access to the alleyway. But then when the weather got cold, as it does, she tried to do it in the gym. And it was possible, but it was definitely new. It was governed.
Yeah.
It couldn't really, and it was always inconvenient. I was like, oh, well, fuck, we got class at 9. And it's like, you want to do it, but it kind of was causing collision and it was a bit chaotic. So she had actually mentioned, maybe we should look at more space. And I had not ever really even considered that thought. And then it was like, shit, maybe we could. But I had reservations because I was like, well, what we have here is so specific. It's niche, like I said before. And if I were to go from, say, a 3,000 square foot private training studio with, a few members here and there to a, full service membership, big box gym, let's say, how quickly would that affect kind of the culture that had been organically created, which is what I really valued most. And that was kind of my reservation. Of course, the cost, but maybe the cost and financial thing really wasn't much of a, because I'm just like other people fucking do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I believe in myself. Like I'll do whatever it takes to make it work.
Yeah.
And then we started looking at spaces, and that was tumultuous. I don't know how challenging it was to acquire this space, but we had settled on 2 or 3. First and last in security, started construction, started the layout and everything, and they fell through. I was about ready to give up. But then again, Vanessa ended up finding the space that we're in now, which really ended up being the best out of all of them. Not only the location, but the layout, my landlord's suite, which was a huge upgrade from my previous landlord, who was a dirtbag. And it just kind of worked out. Kind of same thing with this coffee shop, It was just kind of like this idea, and then you kind of start getting into it and asking questions and making connections, and it's like, shit, this is really going to pop off.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions, was like, what was the impetus with the coffee shop? Was it just a case of like, we want another revenue stream, or?
Nah, just me and Jenny were hanging out one night. I think it might have been at my place. We had just had dinner, and she actually originally just kind of said, because she's at the gym full time now, which has been phenomenal. It was having her in the Group X program was always kind of an inkling that I'd had, but Vanessa had put a lot of work into it, and she was really bleeding for it. And then Maria took it over, and they were both doing a great job, and they were doing all the stuff. You know what I mean? They were holding classes, they were really bleeding for the program, really investing in it, and I didn't want there to be any animosity or any stepping on toes. I just had reservations.
Yeah.
And then Maria ended up meeting somebody, getting engaged, and moving to Greece, and she's thriving out there, which is great. Vanessa ended up having a baby, and her and her husband are doing very well. So I had asked Jen if she'd wanted to, take over the Group X program, and she did, and it's just been great. And now she's taking on more roles at the gym. So that's just been a huge asset. It's worked out, better than I could have ever expected. Mm-hmm. But we were at my place one night, and she was like, I would really like to have like my own brand of coffee sometime, because we were brewing a lot of coffee at my place, trying different brands, a lot of stuff at Whole Foods, ordering different coffees, this, that, and the other. And she's like, I'd really like to have my own coffee brand sometime. Maybe we could source coffee, and I could just like retail coffee out of the gym. Yeah. And you know me, I was fucking smoking a bone, dude. So I was like, why don't I just put a coffee shop in the front of the gym? That's exactly how it happened. And then I just kind of started thinking, and I have a background in trades, so anytime there's something at the gym that I could build, anytime I can pull my tool belt out, like I'm in. Like I just really, really enjoy that work. Like it's just a soul fulfilling endeavor, firing up my tools and just building shit. And it's just like, and then when it's done, you're kind of torn, because you're like, yo, that's sweet, but it's over. I want to build more shit.
Dude, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I started thinking about like, dude, I could build like the sickest fucking countertop up here. You know what I mean? I could add more, and then maybe I could like do a wall piece with more storage. Maybe I could do like an apparel wall, and ideas started flowing. And then I started making some calls, and I reached out to Dave from Brother and Moffat, the food prep guy. Yep. And I'm like, you have any connections in the coffee space? And he's like, bro, you ever talk to Dave?
Oh, yeah.
Bro, listen to me. He goes, Tiago. His brother Tiago is my buddy. My bro Tiago has some friends in Colombia. And dude, everybody there just grows coffee. He's like, everybody grows coffee. He's like, here people have gardens. Every house grows coffee. And he has so many friends that grow coffee, and they're trying to get it into the States. So that kind of got my gears turning. Then he put me in touch with a consultant. And then I met with another consultant. And all these people that I kind of knew or knew through other people, actually their full-time position is in coffee. So all these resources just started falling into my lap. And, but then the challenge was to find a decent plumber, find a decent electrician, which I've really struggled to do, because even though I have a background in trades, a lot of the guys are in Mass and they're not licensed in Rhode Island. And then you got to connect with the Department of Health, which is a disaster, because state-funded agencies.
That took you a hell of a long time, didn't it?
Well, it didn't take a long time, but what it did was, when I reached out to them, I had just... I understood very quickly that, like many other state-funded agencies, they just don't fucking work. They just don't want to. Everything's slow. Everything takes forever, and they have all these requirements. So for example, for a coffee space that's doing food, you need a 3-bay sink, you need a hand sink and a mop sink. And I'm like, why do I need a hand sink if I have a 3-bay sink? There's 3 fucking bays. I can't wash my hands in that. Oh, no, it's got to be separate. And then you need a mop sink, and then you have to have all these dimensions and the countertops, all this stuff within spec, which is fine. I'll play ball. I'll do whatever you guys want. But, the place is like 1.5 miles from the gym. Yeah. You can't send someone down. Can you send someone over and I'll go over the plan, check the layout, make sure I'm doing everything right? Like, whatever it is, I just want to make sure I do it right, because I like to do things.
Yeah, do it right the first time.
I know you share that. Yeah. You and I we like blowing money on vehicles. I look at your gym, like, if you're going to do it, bro, I'm going to fucking do it. Like, tell me whatever it costs up front, because it's something I learned very, very young, because my dad's a wicked, whenever we needed, like, if we needed like a weed whacker, or if we needed any kind of tool or any kind of tractor or anything for the home, I remember always going with my dad, and he always would get the cheapest shit, because that's just how he was. That's how he was brought up. Yep. All due respect, it's nothing against him, but because I grew up in that kind of environment, you're always fucking with shit. Like nothing works when you want it. So I'd rather
you're preaching to the absolute.
I would rather just I'll spend all the money on day one, because number one, I know I got it. Yep. Number two, I'm kind of fucking psyched on it. You know what I mean? Like, especially, so the example of like yard work, like if I have a sick weed whacker and a sick tractor and a sick chainsaw, I'm kind of like psyched up to do I hate cooking. It makes
things easy. You know what I mean?
And enjoyable. Like, I hate cooking, so I just buy like sweet knives and sweet pots. I mean, I kind of feel silly saying this, but like, I'm kind of like, I don't feel like cooking, but I do have that sweet new knife. Yeah. So basically the point I'm making is I just want to do it the right way, and I figured the Department of Health would be a wonderful resource for that, since they're the judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah, completely.
And they're just like, we don't do that. We don't send people out. When it's done, we'll send someone out, and then we can go through everything and make sure everything's up to speed. And right away, I'm like, I get it. That's because you want to write me a bunch of tickets and fines.
Yeah.
So I got to redo everything. So I was very, very frustrated with that. Because that's kind of been my experience with Rhode Island is you want to get anything done. It's just, there's all these regulations and hoops to jump through. So I became very frustrated, and I ended up connecting with my brother-in-law who owns a plumbing company and claimed that he knew all of the regulations very well. He'd done a bunch of jobs like this and he can take care of that for me. So I said, sweet, when can you start? And he started up in August. And he was full of shit. He didn't have a goddamn clue what he was doing. And he charged me all the money and nothing was right. And I don't know plumbing, I don't really know.
That's what I was going to ask. Was like, there's with having a background in the trade, do you have the license out to people?
Yeah.
You have to.
For inspection purposes.
That's what I wondered, yeah.
Yeah, so he had claimed that he, knew everything to do and how to do it correctly, and he wasn't very present. But his workers did it to the best of their ability of how they thought it was supposed to be done. Yeah. But there were some challenges because there's no basement, and I won't get into the nitty-gritty details. But it wasn't right. And when my good friend Drew, who I grew up doing trades with, ended up coming back into my life coincidentally, which has been a godsend because I think it may have been you that asked. I've been asked it a few times, like growing up, if I had any mentors or people I looked up to, and no one really came to mind until I thought about it. And I got to be honest, for me, that's my buddy Drew. I grew up. I met him when I was in my early teens. I was super into motocross, and he was a nutbag on a bike. No one could ride like him, but he also was a tradesman. So I started working for him, and he was an abusive motherfucker on the job. He used to ride my ass, but I respected and admired him so much that I took it. And looking back, he was right.
Dude, I think you need that as a young man. I think you need that 100%.
100%. He would grind me, and he was so hard on me. And if I made any mistake, he would fucking vilify me for it. But I'm so grateful to him for that. And also now being a business owner, I totally get where he was coming from in every aspect. But then we ended up losing touch, not for any particular reason. He ended up having a family, doing very well. I ended up moving to the city and opening a gym, but we still kept in touch. And the thing is when I started competing and I started getting shared, I started getting some traction and, having a bit of an influence, we could say, in my small little piece of the world, he was always so supportive, and he always types in caps lock, which everyone else sees it, and they're like, "Who's that crackhead comment on all your videos in all caps?"
He's always yelling,
but he's not yelling. But that's just him, and he would always be like, "Dude, you're fucking incredible. You need to be famous." He's always been my biggest fan, and it's so funny to kind of look back at that perspective because he was so hard on me, and I wonder if it's because. I don't want to give him this much credit to have that he had this insight. I think he was just irritated and frustrated like most business owners are. But perhaps I had every intention in working with him forever because of how much I just enjoyed the work. And it was always varied. And I just looked up to him so much. But I think he wanted something better for me, I think. Or I could speculate. But perhaps he was as hard on me as he was because he wanted me to do something more for myself, and
he probably saw a little bit of himself in you.
Potentially, yeah.
I think that's pretty common in some of those situations. Where it's like you have an employee, or you are the employee, and the boss is looking down, being like, "Well, this could be done better, or that could be done better," because they see progression, or they see something, and.
What made me think that is just as hard on me as he was. When I did start doing my own thing, man, he was so behind me, and it just meant the world. So he ended up. He's a insanely hard worker, and his body is ragged, just beat to shit. I mean, it's amazing that he does what he does. Even if he was healthy, but he has so many injuries from horrific crashes on dirt bikes and just working, and he hasn't been feeling well. So he reached out to me, and he communicated that. He said, "Dude, I've always, done a lot, and I've always been very high energy." He's like, "But these last couple of years," he's like, "I really, really, really feel it." He's like, I don't feel myself." So I said, get a blood panel. Let me take a look at it. Maybe I can give you some recommendations. So we ended up coming by the gym, gave him a little eval. And then he saw that the plumbing was going on. He said, what do you got going on? I said, well, I'm building a coffee shop. I'm doing a bar next. And he's like, who's doing it? I said, I was going to do it. He's like, well, I'll do it with you. So now he is present at the gym. And it took another challenge, another setback, another bunch of bullshit with the plumber and things just not moving along. Basically it took 4 months to do about a week job with the plumbers. And then once Drew came, my buddy Dan and I have just been going to work, and it's just exploded. It went from like kind of a dragging process to just like, we're just throwing shit at it. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It doesn't even belong in the gym. It looks insane. And it's just become something really, really special. And everyone's super excited.
So you're making that because I think I saw some pictures where you've got like the apparel wall there now as well. Am I right in that?
So retail space is obviously super important, as you know.
Front more retail and then the gym in the back, essentially.
Yeah, and we always kind of had like this like half-ass retail spot behind the existing desk.
Yeah.
But and it was all there, but it's kind of like on the wall, up and back behind the desk and behind the cardio. And as you know, in the retail space, having a presentation and being able to have access and reach out and touch and read and display is you could have the best possible product, but if it's not in their face where they can actually see it and it's tangible and they can look at it, it definitely takes a lot out of your pocket because people just can't see the stuff. And that can be said for the apparel setup I had and the supplement and retail setup I had. So what I ended up doing is I ended up building a supplement wall when you first walk in on the right. So now it's right when you walk in, it's at eye level. It's not behind the desk. So right when you come in, there's all the supplements, everything's right there. And then I built, like you said, I found these like shelves that I got on Amazon that all kind of connect, and you can kind of build your own shelf setup. So I figured out, how wide I need for hoodies, how wide I need for shirts. And I also thought it was important to create kind of I didn't want a wall, but like a degree of separation from, say, the coffee shop, and there's going to be some seating, and then the gym. But I was like, maybe I could do like a half wall, so that you could still see the gym.
Okay,
so that they're still connected, but there is this like faux barrier. But also really nice for retail space as well. And then I have those slat boards in the back, which has a bunch of options for shelving. So I ran 2 more rows all the way to the ceiling, so I can have TVs for menus. And, we'll have a protein ice cream bar, similar to like Froyo, where you have like all the things you can add. So I have those Ninja Creamies. You can, whip stuff up. So we'll have that. Paninis, breakfast sandwiches, shakes.
Wow.
Well, what the fuck, dude? You're gonna build a bar. It's like, dude, you may as well like try to make some fucking money, bro. So I mean, if it'll sell, I want to be in position to be able to have it. And also, selfishly, I'm there all the time. I have certain requirements for my nutrition and things that I want to eat. So, it's not the biggest pain in the ass, but being able to have a full service area like that at the gym is really going to help me stay on point with my food. I also, Jenny won a smoker, a Traeger.
Oh, yeah.
And I had no...
I love it. I have one. I love it.
I never knew how to use one at all. It's actually extremely simple, extremely easy. So I do my chicken, and we did a couple roasts. So that's something else I could do as well, as I could, when I'm doing my food, I'll just make a ton of it. And then, members at the gym always want, do you have anything to eat? Do you have any food? Do you have any bars? And I just I can't bring myself to carry protein bars. It's just garbage. So I want to be able to offer food, real food. And the shakes, it's all going to be locally sourced stuff, locally sourced honey, locally sourced maple syrup, anything that I can get local, high quality ingredients, like real food, the best protein, no bullshit powders to cut costs. I want to have the best stuff and just be able to offer it to, it's nice. I can offer it to my members, but it's really for me, so I can have it for myself as well.
Yeah. I mean, the hell, that's why I got the warehouse gym.
Yeah.
There's only one person that trains here, and it's me.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's the best.
So this is like a perfect time to ask you this next question. So obviously with all this stuff going on with the gym, like you've got the gym itself, you've got the coffee shop, you got the recovery side of it as well still. And then everything else, all the other strands of the business. Like what's the grand goal for the business? Like, do you have like this vision almost of, hey, I want this, or it's just an organic growth?
It's a fair question. Yeah, I don't know.
Because the coffee shop seems very organic.
Yeah.
You know, the growth of the business and then getting a new space because you needed the space is very organic. But do you have like hey, I really want to do this?
I mean, before I think about long term, I mean, the goal always is just to improve and sharpen what I already have.
Yeah.
The question I get all the time is, you want to open another one? You want to open another one? You want to open another one? And it's like, well, number one, I was able to do what I did because I started off as a trainer in the area. I was very fortunate to be able to gain, a large clientele quickly. I started at Boston Sports Club, and I had a large clientele. I had a large following. So when it was time for me to, maybe I'll open my own place, I really just needed the capital to get the place open. Yeah. And I kind of was, I was essentially in the green as far as being profitable day one, because I had a training business that was grossing, say 10 to 12K a month, of which I was only making a percentage of because I was working for another gym. So when I opened my own space,
your income goes through the roof then.
Well, it was already there. I already had a nest egg. I kind of got a raise day one. Yeah. I went from making 60% of that income to all of it. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't have capital, so I had to get my hands on some capital to build the first space. But with my background in trades, I was able to do a lot of the work myself. I mean, it was a lot of time and a lot of work, but I really enjoyed doing it. And from the moment I was open, I was already profitable. Yeah. Now, granted, those profits had to go to pay back the capital investment at the gym, but I was already making money. The thought of coming up in this area. Let's say this area needs a gym, right? Let's say there's an actual appetite and market for it. The thought of taking out a loan or coming up with the necessary capital to build a facility, and what's the number on that? It's whatever you want. It could be 100K, it could be 500K, it could be 5 million if you have the money. And then to think about having to take out a loan for like foreseeable expenses for the first, say, 18 to 24 months to cover all the the necessary expenses, and just hope that you sell enough memberships to eventually in 18 months, 2 years to be green is very intimidating. I
always see a lot of guys be like, my gym is successful because of my training business.
Exactly.
You can maybe make rent and all that sort of stuff, make a little bit of money with memberships, but the big crux of the income seems to always be a training side of stuff.
Yeah, and in order to generate that type of reach, it's all marketing. And, I'm not going to say that marketing intimidates me, but I'm just not a sales guy. Yeah. I've never been a sales guy. I think that anyone who is in sales, I have, listened to some short sales resources like, marketing, content and things like that. And a lot of it, at the end of the day, kind of it all has an air of manipulation behind it.
That's not actually a bad way to put it. Yeah,
and at the end of the day, I mean, we're all manipulators, right? Like right now, we're having a conversation, and for lack of a better word, if we're talking about a topic where, say, you and I may disagree or have different ideas, I'm going to try to manipulate you to agree with me.
Yes, it's your views and vice versa.
And I feel like sales just exaggerates that. And granted, I am a salesperson as a trainer, but I'm selling my service. I'm selling something that I believe in.
Though, like I feel like in other sales, the problem is almost forced at times, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I've got this product. If you do your feet hurt? Does your back hurt? Do you piss blood? Blah blah. I've got a thing for you.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, it's somebody coming to you. Same with us. They're coming to you for a product or a service to better what they're doing already.
Yeah.
It's to better what they're doing already, because realistically, even if they're seeking out a trainer, you've sort of started by yourself. You've at least taken the step to, acknowledge mentally and that I want to get in better shape or whatever. So I think it's different in
the sense
but
because
I'm
selling something that I am personally immersed in myself to the highest degree that I'm capable of. I really value strength. I really value understanding food. I really I believe through, anecdotally, but also being in a position to guide people through these practices. I believe that it's something that perpetuates in everything else you do. You get your shit together, you hold yourself accountable, and you lean into the challenges of grueling, hard training to try to build a vessel to be more capable. Like, I'm very passionate about this, so I have no problem being like, you should give it a shot. I do. I think it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So back to the business thing. That's what put me in a position to be able to open a space.
Yeah.
So the thoughts of doing another one somewhere else is kind of very intimidating to me.
It's very hard because I moved to Washington and opened a gym, and it was exactly what I said before. Like, could make rent, could pay the bills, all that stuff based on membership, but there wasn't much extra income. Luckily, I had Cerberus, so I was making a little bit of money, and I could afford food, or pay my own rent or whatever. But especially in a new environment, you don't know anybody, you're trying to create a circle, you're trying to get your name out there. Even, being 2 hours up from Rhode Island, even if people still know your name in this area, it's still going to be hard as hell.
Of course, yeah.
Because what's your membership base at now?
How many?
Yeah.
Probably like the mid 300s, maybe.
Yeah. And that's a monthly paying membership.
Yes.
So that's like pretty substantial, to put it mildly.
Yeah, it's the gym itself is profitable. That's enough for the gym to be in the green.
Yes.
It could definitely be more profitable, but I don't really see. Maybe another 100 members before it starts getting.
That's the problem,
and that's what ends up happening with all these big commercial gyms because they sell memberships for $10 a piece.
Yeah,
and so many people from gyms there's an Edge right up the street. Edge is a great gym. It's a great commercial gym. They have, it's not like a Planet Fitness, where they have racks, they have bumpers, they have great equipment, but it ends up getting oversaturated. And, basically, to me, the culture in something like that just gets watered down.
Well, I think that's what sort of happened. I don't know I think you've trained there before. Is Impact in Auburn, Worcester area? Yeah,
I have actually a pretty close relationship with them.
Yeah, well, I think that, like, from my experience in there, I was like, and from what Michelle had told me previously about what the gym was, like, it just got to the point where, like, it was like the go-to place and it got oversaturated. And then you add in the social media element and everyone wanted to film and workouts and have a tripod here and a tripod there. It became quite actually difficult to even get a workout in, And I think that's the downfall of a lot of successful gyms, that it's like, oh, we keep pushing the membership because we want to make more money. But then it's like a double-edged sword, because now eventually the membership's going to start going down because people are getting pissed off. Yeah,
and I think what makes basically my goal and my perspective different from that is I want to push the offerings of the gym. I want to push the quality of the service and be able to charge for it.
Yeah.
So a true quality over quantity business model. So I don't want to say it's necessarily a long-term goal, because it's just kind of like a piece-by-piece process, but I just want to keep leveling up what I have within those walls, So it's like, well, and I also I have to be working towards something, and that was kind of the thing over the last couple of years. I'm like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? I would keep upgrading equipment, keep doing little things with the gym, reorganize this, reorganize that. But I was like, what's the next big thing? So this coffee idea was like, this is kind of sweet. Like I could really build, like take any, and in the Providence area, we have all these great ritzy hipster coffee shops. I grew up in Mass drinking Dunkin' Donuts. I can't even look at that stuff now. It's just, it's just not coffee. It's coffee, but it's not coffee. So there's so many resources around like that, but it's a huge kind of piece of the culture of the area. And there's no reason I couldn't put, with the square footage I have and kind of the background and understanding I have, to be able to put a shop in the front of the gym that's just as good, if not better, than any other shop in the area. And it's such a complementary business model, Well,
that's what I was about to say. It was like, it's not a stretch of the imagination to think that, the people who are coming into the coffee shop then see the gym and be like,
And even if not, I think it just might be cool to go down and grab some food and grab some coffee in that kind of atmosphere. I think it's just kind of different. It's kind of cool. It's like this kind of new thing. Like there's this like 5-star coffee shop with all the espressos and lattes with the cute, queer little flowers on top, with the Christmas trees, with the cream, in the middle of this like raw nuts and bolts gym with all these people in the background, like really sending it. So it's similar to like, and a similar idea to like the Group X program. program. You know, you probably wouldn't typically see a lot of gyms similar to mine. They don't have Group X, but to me, it's kind of a complementary thing because it's like a funnel system. You know, there's a great community of women in particular that come to these classes who are not the barbell type at all. Yeah. They're more the Pilates, yoga, they're group class girls. And then Jen gets a hold of them and beats the shit out of them. But the thing is you've been to my place, where the Group X room is in the back. So to get to it, you have to walk through everything. You got to go through the jungle, bro. You know what I'm saying? You know, you got to walk by the main rig. There's 6 squat racks right in the middle of the gym, and they got to walk through that. And the first couple of times you can see this kind of timid demeanor. They walk by and they look around like this, but then the next week they come by and they're standing a little taller and they're kind of looking, they're kind of curious. They're kind of like, what is that log? What are they doing over there? Do you think I could do that? And then Jen will kind of like integrate some of the implements and barbell stuff into the group class. And it's not like we're necessarily pressuring them into doing something more. A lot of the girls are totally happy to just do Group X. Yeah,
you're like enabling the ability to explore.
Yeah, I want them just to be curious, you know? And of all the things that have gone on since opening day of my first location, perhaps one of the coolest aspects of it is, you know, it's great to be one of the only places in the area that has the necessary tools and hardware to facilitate all the local competitive athletes, you know? Okay, there isn't really another gym in the area that has access to all the Strongman stuff, all the Cerberus stuff, all the powerlifting stuff, all the bars. There really isn't a place that has that. So being able to cater to those type of people is very special to me because those are the people I want to be around, you know? Yeah. But I think I can make a pretty good argument that what's really been special is just seeing these very normal, very regular, average people who just want to go to the gym and want to get in shape, want to feel better, want to feel more confident, you know, maybe have a slight interest in strength, whatever. Yeah. End up competing in my shows. You know what I mean?
That's cool. It's a good progression.
And doing well. And doing shit that they never thought they were. It's kind of cheesy, but it's very authentic when you have like a woman that came in and had all these back problems and started training because her knees hurt and her back hurt and she can't hold her child without being in pain. Yeah. And then she's, you know, pulling a 300 AMRAP deadlift in a strongman show in front of her family. Like, that's so sweet. That's so cool. So the, you know, and having the Group X program kind of helps facilitate things like that even more. And I can definitely see a coffee shop, which really is fine just servicing my existing members and clientele and myself. But there's also a great opportunity to perhaps bring some new people in and funnel them into our other services.
Well, as that is, you know, as we've talked in the past, like, you're so, like, building the community, building that environment is so important to you that I think it just builds on that, you know?
Yeah.
It completely just levels it up a little notch, but that could lead to a big notch, you know?
Well, I think one of the many things that we're very fortunate to be a part of is this, you know, strength scene, you know, and it allows us to be able to travel all over the country and, you know, go to other gyms and experience different things. And, you know, I've traveled all over the country as you have, and I've gone to these facilities that blow mine out of the water. Beautiful facilities, huge, enormous, anything you can imagine, all the equipment. And, you know, I'm very grateful to be able to train in those places and shake hands and meet new people and, you know, feel the vibe and all that. It's great. I mean, I live for it. It's my thing. However, all those gyms feel empty to me. You know, I want to be there because it's almost kind of like a R&D, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of go and, I mean, all we're really doing is just kind of like seeing what other people are doing and kind of stealing it and repackaging it and making it our own. So I think it's important to do that. But I want to get home and back to my place and train with my boys and the girls at the gym and just continue to build that. Yeah. You know, I think going out and seeing other things is necessary to be able to improve my own place. So I'm happy to do it, and I look forward to it each time. But whenever I'm away, I want to get back and go back to my place, you know, our place, and just keep making it better. And I think it's, you know, because I'm so interested and involved in the whole scene, it just helps facilitate that whole, you know, that kind of whole journey.
Well, I think the big thing with your gym is the uniqueness of it. You know, like, you're always trying to do something new, add something new, whether it's a service, a product, whatever. And then I want to talk about the light stuff, the light nights, and they put in what was the thought process there?
The lights,
The lights, you just wanted to have the lights in the gym, be able to turn it down and create a little bit of ambience?
So day one, when I first started kind of coming up with the layout and how I wanted to do the new space, I forget how I came across this photo. I have no idea how I came across this picture because I don't give a shit about fighting or MMA. But whatever, there's a boxing gym in Boston called Everybody Fights. And I came across these visuals of the gym, and they had this like really cool looking like halo lights, like very similar to these lights here in the back. Yeah. So they were suspended from the ceiling, and it was just a square. And it from afar, it kind of just looked like these lights were like floating above the ring. And then they had the same setup in the locker room. And I'm like, that looks so freaking cool.
It's almost like those like hexagonal ones they put in garages and stuff.
Those
honeycomb ones?
It kind of looks, so yeah, the honeycomb is I see those as well, but it was just straight beam, like straight fluorescent light, and it was just, it was one big square. And I was like, man, that looks so cool. Like I said, I'm not an electrician, but I've worked a long time. I was like, I should be able to build and rig something up like that. So I ended up going to an electrical supplier in Rhode Island, and I was kind of walking around, and I ended up finding these fluorescent lights that they had a shell, but I ended up buying enough to build a halo like that in the group room and a halo like that above the rig in the center. Yeah. And they went in the closet, and it never ended up coming to fruition because I spoke to a couple of electricians, and they're like, maybe we could make it work. I don't know, this, that, and the other. Then they would refer me to these catalogs, which had lighting similar to what I saw in Everybody Fights. And the cost was just insane. Yeah. It was just like, quality lighting is like big money. And at the time, I mean, I was fucking buried in debt. I was opening a gym, 10,000 square foot gym. So I really wasn't in a position to basically, allocate the necessary funds to do it right. I didn't want to do some ritzy bullshit. I want to do it right because I did the equipment right. You can't have this gym with all this beautiful equipment and have this pile of shit light hanging. I mean, that's just garbage. So it ended up never becoming anything, and they were in the closet. So I mean, I've been open for 5 years now, six years now at that location. 6 years, a little over 6 years. So what kind of made me think about it even further is, I don't know if you're familiar with N1, Coach Kasim.
No.
So he was working with Ben Pekulski for a while when Ben Pekulski opened his place, MI40, down in Tampa.
Yep.
And I always kind of caught this vibe. Ben's definitely an intelligent guy. However, and they were putting out some great content, MI40 Nation, just like certain little nuanced videos about like training delts and force arms and strength curves and resistance curves, just like really, really quality stuff explained really, really well. And I kind of always got the gauge that like, even though Ben is very impressive in his own right, I kind of got the vibe that Kasim was really the brains and Ben was kind of the, he had the brain, but he had the face and the brawn, Yeah. But I would kind of listen to this dude talk, and I'm like, this guy's a smart guy. I think maybe he's really the one behind a lot of this. And then they ended up separating, and he went out on his own, and he opened a training facility more of an educational facility and research facility in Colorado. And then he released this course, this biomechanics hypertrophy course. So I signed up for it, and he had the coolest space out in Colorado. And it was, there was like seating and a projector for the lecture portion. And then he had all the best machines, all Atlantis, a lot of Prime stuff. And he ended up like a lot of the Prime stuff, like in particular, there was an incline chest machine where he ended up like adding a bunch of wood blocks and mounting the machine so that it was, and when you would press on these machines, they were just perfect. Because this dude is brilliant. Yeah. Like that I could take that course 10 times and probably still learn a bunch more shit because it was so deep physics, deep biomechanics, like really, really brilliant shit. But anyway, when we would train, he would turn the lights off and all the equipment was blue. And he had all this lighting. All the machines would have like a blue LED, and he had the LED blue lights under the dumbbells, and they're chrome, like the Prime ones are chrome, like my Watsons. So the light would like bounce off the chrome dumbbells, and then he would just like blast house. And I'm like, this is fucking sick. It was so cool. Now, not so much appropriate for like a commercial setting, maybe, because it was dark. Yeah. And the lighting was like just enough. Like, I don't think you could do something like that at a regular commercial gym, but I kind of started thinking a little bit. And then Jen Jen took over the Group X program a little over a year ago, and it was growing and growing. And I was like, it wouldn't take much to set lights up like that in there. Like, I got to be able to figure out some way I could put LED lights in there, and maybe they could change colors. And, they have all these cheap LED strips, and they're sweet. I have them behind my TV at home. You can just change the color, and they're, it's sweet. So I started kind of like designing some ideas, and I'm like, maybe I can make this work in the group room. And I was like, if I do it in the group room, couldn't I do it in the whole gym? Like, what the fuck? I don't know. I can figure this out. So I called my buddy Chris, who's an electrician back home, and we ended up coming up with this design with U-strut, which is basically, it's like the stuff up in the ceiling that you basically mount all of your electrical conduit to. And I actually built a little rack with it years ago for all the attachments to my big Rogue squat rack, like all the handles for the jam bars and stuff. So I used U-strut for that. So Chris was like, we could probably use that U-strut to hold the LED strips, and we could suspend them from the ceiling. And it's not inexpensive, but it's dramatically less expensive than other lighting. Yeah. So now the question is, how much of this shit do we need to make it work? So we started hanging a bunch of struts. And when we got about half the gym done, I turned the lights on, and it was sweet. The coloring was sweet, but it wasn't nearly bright enough because the U-strut, the light is up inside the U-strut, and a lot of the light was getting absorbed in the strut.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh God, this is not going to work. And I'm already like pretty deep financially invested. I'm like, I got to figure this out because this is a mess. So I ended up thinking about maybe like plexiglass. Like, what if I wonder if I could get like 4x8 sheets of plexiglass and rip the plexiglass and put it in the U-strut. So now the light is in the bottom of the U-strut and it won't get so absorbed. But I was like, where am I going to? And I've worked with plexi-cut and it's awful. So I ended up finding this company, a huge warehouse that basically manufactures all different plexiglass, all different colors, shapes, and you can get it cut to any size you want. So I ordered a few strips that would fit inside, and it was perfect. So I ordered 800 feet of that. It was only like $500, and it was a bitch. It took a lot of time to go back up and pull the lights down and then stick them, but it completely remedied the issue, and it is sick. And I ended up updating the stereo system. I got this ridiculous like 12,000 watt sub. I think it's the size of that light. It just shakes the whole building. So Thursday is going to be our first official. We're trying to come up with a name. I think Jen likes electric light night or whatever she called it. But tonight is our first night where we're going to actually turn the lights off and slam like a house dubstep playlist. I put a projector up so we'll have like a light show in the background and just kind of see how it is, you know?
And it's like going back to like what other gym in this area, like New England area?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned Impact.
Impact has some lights.
And they ended up adding a bunch more.
Oh, they did. I haven't been there in a couple of years now. But yeah, it's so
Impact is sweet.
It's
Impact
a great gym.
The owner, her name escescapes me, but she's extremely wealthy. She's done very well for herself.
Pro, isn't she?
She's super jacked.
I think she's an IFBB.
I think she's in like 61, 62 years old, and she is super jacked and super passionate, very, very involved, and that's why Impact does well too. But they ended up doing some, but it's just upstairs. It's not the whole gym.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So we'll see how it is. I mean, the members absolutely love it. And they always turn them on. I'm like, guys, we need some semblance of novelty. You know what I mean?
Like, post about that saying, hey, they cut it out type of thing.
Because they're always putting them on. And that was fine. That was cool. But, they all really, really enjoy it. And what was really sweet is the last show we had, Rhode Island Strongest, which was such an epic competition. That Stone event, I haven't seen anything like it. It was so sick. But anyway, it was kind of a dim, dreary day. So I ended up, there was a decent amount of natural light, but it wasn't a sunny day by any means. It was very, very dim. So I ended up turning the red lights on, and you could see them a little bit. And I was like, I wonder what it would look like if I cut all the lights. Is there enough natural light that it won't be like the light night, but kind of like a nice general like mean in between the two? And when I cut the lights out, there was probably 150 people between spectators and the competitors in the gym, decent crowd. And when I dropped the lights, I heard, ooh. And right then I was like, oh, thank God, it was worth it. because it's been a lot of work and a lot of money, but the end result is sweet. So we'll really see how it is tonight, and you know, maybe things need to be added or changed, but I think we're sweet. I think we're just about done. And also the coffee shop is just about done. So before I came here, we actually unboxed all the machines and put all the machines in place, which are just immaculate. It's just beautiful, beautiful stuff, all chrome and shiny and sweet. And so what's going to be nice is if we do get, the existing members will get to see it. They've seen the whole process. But if we're fortunate to get a decent amount of drop-ins, people that want to come and train and check out the light night, they'll be able to actually see the coffee shop and hopefully generate some interest. Because, you know, as good as it is, as good as it's going to be, if people don't know about it, it doesn't make a difference. So this will be a nice kind of opportunity, I think, to get people in the know and to see what's going on. And hopefully when the coffee shop opens, we'll have a great opening day.
When are you trying to launch it?
You know, it'll be done when it's done.
Yeah.
As far as like the actual work and construction, again, you know, having my buddy Drew and Dan there, it's just a matter of time because we work fast. We work fast, and Drew and Dan both are so talented. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a month maybe.
Nice.
I mean, we'll see when the Department of Health comes in. But the thing is, we did everything perfectly. You know, I really would be very surprised if they found anything that wasn't within spec. But aside from that, I mean, we should be ripping within a month, maybe. And Jen is so excited. You know, she's going to be on crutches for a few months, but, you know, she's so psyched. The members are so psyched. Everyone's talking about it. You know, we're always just trying to do the right thing. You never know if it's well received. You never know if you're doing the right thing, you know, but this has been very well received. And, you know, it's just very inspiring to just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep swiping that fucking credit card and just keep fucking going. Just whatever.
Yeah, I get it.
But I love it. I love it. It doesn't bother me at all. Like I don't mind. I don't mind
investment.
I don't mind the pressure.
Yeah,
you know, I don't mind it. I think I kind of live for it. I think it's kind of addicting. I think it's kind of addicting to just throw it out there and put yourself underneath a bunch of debt and a bunch of stress and just figure it out. Just figure it out. You know, because the harder it is. And it's been hard. You know, there's been a good amount of financial setbacks. I'm actually involved in a lawsuit now for a massive financial fraud investigation I got, you know, and you know, it's stressful, but whatever, you know, we're men, you know.
Just gotta keep
fucking lay it on, bro. Like, you know, whatever. And you know, I'm confident that as challenging as it gets, I'm gonna come out on the other side of it. We're all gonna come out on the other side of it, and we're gonna have a sweet place, a sweet facility to share, and just you know, just to be able to provide that for people and for myself and see it have an impact. It's just a sweet endeavor, and I'm very grateful to be a part of it. You know.
No, dude. I mean, it's fucking exciting to see everything you do because it's always another like level. You know, so it's always another piece of the puzzle that seems to like. I always sit there and be like, well, fuck it. It's pretty good setup. And then you sort of click in and you're like, oh shit, I could do this. And like, wow, I never even thought about that. And it's like, great idea. Yeah. Talking of leveling up and all that sort of stuff, where's training right now? Like competition plans? I know that you've got surgery coming up. What's the latest and greatest? And
so I haven't actually scheduled. I haven't even met with the doctor yet. I'm going to see the same doctor Jen's seeing, but you know, the podcast you did on mine and the first one we did together, you know, we talked about injuries and things like that. And that's kind of like par for the course, isn't it? You know, are we supposed to be deadlifting 900 pounds and walking with 1,200 pound yokes? Are we meant to do that? Probably not, but that's why we do it, because it's awesome. But, you know, that car accident I got in still rears its head all the time. And I've always had issues with my back, issues with my legs, issues with my knees. And I knew I had something going on with this hip. And I was told by the doctors, because one of the bones I broke was my right femur. And I was told that I would definitely be a potential candidate for something called FAI, which is femoral acetabular impingement syndrome. When you fracture the hip and fracture the femur, it can heal a bit misshapen. And it doesn't quite track right in the hip. And it can just be kind of uncomfortable. And, you know, of course, there's different severities of it. And the reality is I definitely had it. So my femur being misshapen and tracking in my hip like that, ended up causing tears to form in the labrum of my hip. And my hip always felt off. It always felt tight. I was a big BMX guy, I used to ride BMX, and I did some downhill mountain biking. And I was always wicked uncomfortable on a bike. But just being in that flex position, my hip would always just bother me if I tried to do running, or I love CrossFit classes, and, getting into a WOD and going repetition, my hip and my back would always get irritated.
Just blow up, yeah.
And with strength training, it was a factor, but it could be mitigated, because I'm doing a set of 1, 3, 5, 8, 10, 12, like that 43 rep 405 squat I did. The limiting factor was my hip and my back, and, it just starts getting fatigued. So I just kind of always accepted it. But then I ended up getting hooked up with this woman, Charlotte Moriarty, who was just a wonderful practitioner. She's been such a huge help to Jen and I out of OrthoRI. And I ended up getting some imaging on my shoulder and my hip, and there's a tear in both labrums. And as we looked into it a bit deeper, this hip has more than likely been the cause of my back issues. I mean, training obviously bothers your back, but the way that my back goes out, it's my hip and my right knee. And also, I don't know if you're familiar with piriformis syndrome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How annoying is that shit?
Silly.
So that would come up all the time. And it's just a different kind of pain, There's muscle soreness, which sucks, but it's totally manageable. There's joint pain and joint soreness, which sucks a bit worse, but it's manageable. You can, if my knees feel like shit, I can still get done what needs to get done.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
But when when my muscles are sore, once I get warm,
You're good to
you're
go.
sweet.
Yeah.
But the thing with piriformis syndrome, because of the neurological aspect of it, because the piriformis, the sciatic nerve goes through the piriformis, it's a different kind of pain. And I'm not saying it's like 10 out of 10 pain. It's probably like between a 4 and a 7, but it's just a different kind of pain that when you're hinging back into an RDL or dropping into a squat or bending over to grab a deadlift, it just feels like shit. And you can't, at least I can't train through it. I can't, it just feels like
I don't
shit.
think there's many people that can train through it.
And so, it's piriformis syndrome, diagnosed piriformis syndrome. So I would do the exercises and drills and treatments for piriformis syndrome. One of the things that definitely felt best was getting into like a figure 4 cradle and putting my gun on the spot. And I mean, it was directly hitting it. Like, I'm like, this is sweet. When I'm done doing this, if I can commit and fight through this and massage it and just grind it, it felt so good. Just like if you're working with a massage therapist and you have a knot and they're right on the knot and it's like this
feels like shit, but
this motherfucker's gonna make this feel better. Like he's on it, he's got it. And I'm like, I would stretch it right on the spot and it would not get better at all. Now, looking back, it's obvious to me now, but it's because that was the symptom, not the cause. And when you look into it, a very common misdiagnosis is piriformis syndrome for a labral issue.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, being my optimistic self, I am pretty confident that if I were to finally go through with this surgery, that it's going to help and perhaps fix a lot of the chronic issues that I've been dealing with for 20 years since
Is that
the
hip replacement, or what would the actual surgery be?
It's just I haven't met with the surgeon yet because it's very important to me that Jen gets hers done and gets back on her feet, and then I'll go in for mine. So I'll be meeting with him probably next week or the week after to actually find out what it is. But it's not a hip replacement. Okay. Most likely just a scope, a laparoscopic surgery. It obviously depends. All tears aren't created equal. I'm very familiar with what's going on with Jen's hip. But I'm pretty confident it'll probably be just some kind of scope, some kind of procedure, more than likely on crutches for a month or so. A friend of mine from the gym, Alex Moy, actually had a similar surgery. And he said it took 6 months, but he was hitting PRs in 6 months, which is fine with me. So as far as how training is now, as a lot of you guys know, I work with Shane over at MST, who I cannot say enough about this guy. He is the fucking man. He's so good. He's so good. He's so smart, and he's so resourceful. And I've always been curious as to why he even works with me, because I think he has 10 clients, 6 or 7 of which are competing at Worlds. Lucy Undertown, who's, world's strongest woman. Lucy, and then me, fucking Steve from Dighton, But he says the reason why he works with me is he goes, because you're a clever motherfucker, number one. And he says that I really challenge him because you know he seems to believe that I have a pretty good grasp on this stuff.
Yeah.
And if I can't figure out what's wrong with me, he wants to be the guy to do it. And as so it goes, he has a decent amount of experience with labral issues. He had 3 examples of people who dealt with a similar issue. The one that sticks out the most, I don't know his name, but he's a competitive CrossFitter, been to the games, and he dealt with a labral issue for years. And I got PRP in my hip. Charlotte Moriarty did it, and it helped immediately. If you remember, I was sick, and my back was really bothering me, and I couldn't fix it. And that PRP shot in my hip really broke my back. So I felt much better. I competed in that show and got those national records in the USPA. And then it eventually wore off and it started to bother me again. And he spoke about this CrossFit athlete who was using stem cells and PRP multiple times. And it helped, but it continued getting worse and worse. And he eventually was completely screwed, and he got the surgery and was like, man, why didn't I do this 5-10 years ago? Wow, okay. So again, this is something I've been dealing with for arguably 2 decades. And, you know, I'm optimistic I may have similar outcomes. Because it's not just my lower body. You know, you got to think my hips being off. It goes to everything. Like if you look at me standing up, like my belly button is like to the right. Like my belly button is almost under my right nipple. And I always kind of noticed I was a little off, but like whatever. But now it's funny because when you realize, you know, understanding that there is something going on with my hip, it's kind of like, dude, no wonder. Like you look at me standing naturally, and I'm just off a little bit to the side, and you're like, if I were to look at you, it's funny because if I were to look at you or a client of mine, I'd be like, hey, no wonder, dude, you're crooked. You're belly, you know, you put a 1,000-pound yoke on that crooked frame, it's going to wreak havoc. Obviously. Dude,
that's so common though.
Yeah, but me in my own mind, I'm like, dude, you know, this hurts. Just work through it.
Dude, that's exactly the same as me.
Yeah.
Talking of longer injuries, how's the arm nowadays?
You know, so what we're doing with my training is, since we know I'm going into surgery, something that I wanted to do with Shane was, I said, I got to have access to my front rack, right? Yeah. Like, cause I lost a lot of mobility in my upper body because of my shoulder pain, elbow pain, and because of this, you know, useless arm. Yeah. And I hadn't really addressed it. And I was really focusing on just trying to develop more pushing power, which, you know, ends up kind of making you less mobile. Yeah. If mobility isn't a priority and isn't implemented in your program. So I said, dude, you know, I can barely bench 400 pounds. I can barely overhead press 300. There is no reason that I shouldn't have the most mobile upper body on the planet. If I was, you know, bulling 480 like Lucas Hatton, who has amazing overhead mobility, you know, but if I had a 500-600 bench and a 400 overhead, I could justify not being mobile. But let's get my front rack. So, you know, as Shane does, he put together this incredible program for me to work through, which not only helped all these issues, but it was such a valuable learning experience for me that now I stole and work on my clients, you know? Nice. So opened up my shoulders a ton more access to external rotation, a lot of behind the neck work, behind the neck jerks. And I've been committed to trying to build my dumbbell press with this arm. And it would make a little bit of progress, and then it's just stuck. I've just been stuck with that for so long because at a certain weight, I don't have the kind of strength or like neurological coordination with this left arm to like lock out overhead where my tricep is the stabilizer. I want to go out to the side so my bicep is a stabilizer. And then I just start losing stability. And, you know, traditionally when you come back from an injury, stability is the primary objective. But where this is neurological, I started experimenting with machines, and within the constraints of the machines, I can get really, really good, strong lockouts, and I can overlay and just really focus on the lockout. So implementing more machine work, which is something I never did, not just in my upper body, but also lower body, seems to be having more of an impact. I definitely have noticed, you know, improvements. Yeah. Not only in my pressing power and lockout power, but I have just access to more range now and more coordination. So I think that's moving along as well. So I'm optimistic for that too.
Nice, dude. Talking of Shane, the content he's putting out and producing is absolutely next level. And I saw like
and with that accent, everything he says just sounds so much better.
Yeah. I saw that you'd started to do a bit more content. Tail end of last year. Where's that sitting these days? What's the Like, do you have a goal with that? Like, hey, I'm trying to put this content out because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Grow the channel, grow gym, or what's your thinking there?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I appreciate you asking it because, you know, with my whole perspective on the gym, not wanting to expand, not wanting to make a bigger one or another one, and just wanting to make that as good as it possibly can get. Big picture, long term, that is, you know, eventually, I don't think it'll ever be maxed out, but there's basically a limit.
Yeah,
there's a ceiling.
Yeah, unless you go to a bigger space.
Whatever that limit is, I don't know. I'm nowhere close to it.
Yeah.
But if you're thinking big picture, long term, you know, how could I'm not going to scale the facility anymore in the sense that I don't have an interest in making the facility bigger. I just want to make it better. So there's a ceiling there.
Yes.
So a way to perhaps have a greater reach and create some more, most importantly, create a bigger reach and be able to have a bigger impact, but also to be able to scale my training. I kind of have perspectives of doing more of that, maybe doing more YouTube, and also, you know, I'm very fortunate to train a lot of people remotely, which has been great. It's again something I never thought of doing, but I kind of fell into it, and then it started becoming, and then I started getting a better grasp on it, and then I started working with more and more coaches, and I really feel like I'm really starting to be more confident in my ability to coach people, you know, especially more recently with these new developed understandings of hip health and shoulder health and preventative measures and prehab and rehab. You know, I've been a student of that all along, and now I feel like I'm in a position that I can really help more people. Yeah. So, but with these drills and with these little nuances to exercises, if I'm doing it remote, I can't do it effectively as much. Like showing someone how to do like a sideline dumbbell pullover with the nuances and the specifics that I want them to do it in. It's very, very hard to do it over the phone remotely. So as far as the whole content, that kind of came into the fray just kind of out of nowhere. There's a friend of mine from the gym named Femi. Him and his brother are these Nigerian, just physical. They're so fucking annoying. They are so jacked. They're so jacked. They're so jacked. They're like avatars. And they came in and they were very athletic, but they started lifting weights and they got ridiculously strong. They're just crazy jacked. And Fem always had like a camera. You know, he wasn't like a content guy. It kind of seemed like this like side thing he did. And I saw a little bit of his work he was doing for fun. And it was pretty sweet. But I'd already been working with other content creators, just doing a little bit here and there, having people like, make videos of the competitions and stuff like that. Not a lot of stuff with me. I never really saw value, and I didn't really see that it was worth necessarily the investment to do it. I didn't really have much interest in it either. But what ended up happening is Fem ended up, he was working in a hospital and he ended up losing that job. So he came, and I never really had like long form conversations with Fem, just, hey, what's up, how are you? Yeah. And he came into my office and sat down, and we started talking a bit, and he was really opening up to me about some things he was dealing with. And I kind of had this like thought, like, this is really cool. Like, you know, I never really sat down and talked to this kid, and I was really, I just had this thought, like, this is really nice that he felt confident and comfortable enough to come in and sit and just have this long form talk with me.
Well, it's not the easiest thing to do, that's for damn sure.
Well, I always liked him, you know. I feel like I have a decent amount of intuition. You know, I can kind of like get a good grip on somebody by being around him. And I always kind of liked him, but I never had an opportunity to talk to him. And here we are just kind of like chopping it up about, you know, work and business and goals and this, that, and the other. But he was really stressing because he was in kind of a tight spot financially. And I said, if you're worried about the gym membership, dude, you're all set. Like, I'm happy to comp your membership until you figure out, you know, I know how important this is.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it.
To you, and it should be important to everybody. And especially if you're going through a hard time, I'm not going to take your gym away, dude. Like, you know, you're welcome to train here.
I did the
Don't worry about
exact same thing.
Because what's the worst case scenario? I lose 3 months of membership and I'm doing a guy a favor. Like, it's win-win. Give me a break. Yeah. So I was thinking a bit afterwards, later that day, and I was like, you know what would be cool? There's a decent amount of strong people here. A lot of the strong people in the area train here. So it wouldn't take much to perhaps put like a weekly video together, like top lifts. Yeah. You know, I could just go in and I could just save people's posts and videos and pick 12 of them a week and do a little edit, put some music behind it. And every Sunday morning I would air like top lifts. Then I was like, maybe I'll just have Fem do it. Yeah. You know, I'll offer to pay him. Yeah. Or if he's into it, maybe me comping his membership could offset some of the cost. So I'm happy to pay the kid because it's not something I couldn't do myself. But I'm sure he would do it even better. And really what made me think that is he's got his camera and he's always recording his boys and recording people here and there. So, that would be a better product than, say, just pulling people's videos.
Pulling on Instagram,
so maybe I just have him do that. I'll see what he thinks. So he was obviously like, hell yeah, brother. Like, when do you want to get started? And I was like, I'd like to do it this week. He's like, well, when are you lifting next? I was like, tomorrow I got squats at 2. So he came in and shot, and was shooting me, lifting weights, and we didn't really have anything planned. I was just kind of talking shit, working out. And then about an hour later, he sends me the video, and I'm watching the video, and I'm like, this is like damn good. Like, how did he do this?
Yeah.
Very similar to you.
Well, it's funny that you raised the point of like, I could do it myself. But so I found an old video that I did like a highlight reel from the Arnold, I think it was, of an athlete.
You were embarrassed.
And I was like, I'm really happy with this.
Yeah.
And I watched it back and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Well, I mean, while I'm shooting, I'm just like, this will be pretty cool. He's probably got some good angles of me lifting and, it'll look sweet, higher quality camera. But he put together this mashup and this edit that was totally like an ad for your knee sleeves.
Yeah.
Like unintentionally. Like it wasn't, I was just talking shit about knee sleeves. I'm like, these sleeves are sweet. Been a while since I've been in these sleeves. Look at the pop and just the edits and the way that he did it and the way he cut it up. Very similar to the work I've done with you. It's like when you're recording, you kind of try to have an idea what the end result is going to be, but then you see it and you're like, this is sweet. So I posted it and then you saw it. Yeah. And then he just kept showing up for my workouts. And we kept making videos, and this one was funnier than the next, and the next one was funnier than the next. And I'm like, I'm having a blast. This is so much fun. Like, it wasn't stressful at all. I didn't even have to think about it. I just had my session, and maybe I would just talk a little more shit than I normally would. Yeah. And he would come up with these edits, and we just had a blast. So I ended up, that ended up kind of catapulting him quite a bit because people saw what he was doing, and he ended up getting a bunch of work.
Nice.
And, he was actually doing it full-time for a while. He has since then gotten another full-time job that he's doing really well at. But he's a very, very talented content creator. So rather than doing the videos, because what I'd like to do, circle back to my, doing my online coaching and what's the word? Doing online coaching. Being able to develop and build a YouTube video library.
I wondered if you were going to say that.
With all these drills and things that I've used on myself and with my clients one-on-one. It's not super complex. I'm not going to try to say that I'm a specialist or anything.
But important from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, the way it's like there's a lat pull down that builds your lats and it's sweet. But then there's another way you could do the lat pull down, especially as a strength athlete, and kind of use these little cues and these little positions and things that make it more appropriate for someone who is, say, always an extension, squat and deadlift and pulling. Yeah. You can add all these little nuances and these little drills that really need to be done in a specific manner to generate the outcomes that you want. And it's very, very helpful to be able to put together a 1, 2, 3, 5 minute video, high quality, that's very engaging, to offer as a resource to my existing clientele. Yeah. Now, if down the road, my goal now is to build a YouTube video library to exclusively offer to people who are currently running my programs, and then perhaps make a Patreon that's like, a low month-to-month
it's interesting
income or
to
something
see
like that.
The views on some stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'll get stuff through on my training and I'm like, what the fuck's that? And I'll Google it and the video pops up and it's from 8 years ago and it's got 500,000 views.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, because that may be the long-term thing.
Yeah, it's a 30-second video of the most basic whatever, but it clicks.
And once I have, 20, 30, 40, 50 videos, is there potential for me to just have them on YouTube and then they end up getting a bunch of views and they could be some income that way? Great. I don't necessarily see that as a possibility. That's not really the goal. The goal is just to have something that I can basically add more value to my online coaching. And also it helps a lot with my one-on-one coaching too, because people will have questions and whatnot, and I can just refer them to the videos and it just checks the box, which I could argue is something that I probably stole from Shane in MST, because when he sends me my programs, he has videos for the vast majority of the lifts that are right in the app. And it's just so sweet. You just watch it and it's him, he's entertaining.
Yeah.
And the content is very good. It's very informative. I can refer back to it whenever I need to. So it was kind of a no-brainer. It was just a matter of basically having the resources and facilities in place to be able to do it. And, working with Fem has just been great.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not always the plan, but it just kind of worked out that way.
I think that's where the best things happen, though. You know? Like, how many times have you and I discussed things, whether it's life or business or training, where you start on one topic, and hell, we did today, and you go complete fucking tangent, you know? One thing I want to touch upon, because we were talking about this before, are you still skiing and snowboarding, or what's the deal with that? Because you don't have an accident.
I'm not skiing and snowboarding, but I did have a pretty horrific crash probably 4 or 5 seasons ago, where I flew into the woods. I was probably going like 40, 50 miles an hour maybe, and I kind of like, there was a little. It's like it was on. It wasn't on like a diamond. It was on probably a. To me, I don't even look at trails, but I was skiing with Jen at the time, and she wanted to avoid black diamonds, so we're doing a lot of the blue squares. And I'm much more dangerous on the blue trails because I can just haul ass. Whereas on the diamonds, if there's moguls, if it's crazy, you got to carve a lot more. Yeah. So I feel like I'm actually much more in a position to do some damage on the less steep trails. But I was cruising down this blue trail. And there was a drop on the slope, so I popped up, and I was kind of like in a carve, so I wanted to land in the same carve, and I was kind of like looking where I was going to land. It was probably like 15, 20 feet ahead of me, but it was a beautiful day, perfect conditions. There was a nice like 2-inch layer of powder on top of the slope because it was snowing. Yeah, nice thick snowflakes. It was a beautiful day, perfect conditions. But I underestimated how soft the terrain was I was landing. I was going to be. I landed in a little too aggressive of a carve, and I washed out. So I was sliding across the trail. Yeah, flying white everywhere. I couldn't see anything, so I was kind of like sliding on my ass, and I was waiting until I slowed down enough that I thought that I could pop up, and so right when I went to turn on my side to start to dig my skis in, the moment I turned on my side, I went off the side of the trail, which is. I get like a knot in my stomach just thinking about it because I was sliding head first, and I thought I was in the middle of the trail. So I thought I had plenty of room. And if I hadn't had the inclination to pop on my side the moment I did, it would have been my head that went through that tree and not my body. No bullshit. And I would have cracked my shit wide the fuck open. So I ended up going through the barrier, through kind of like a deadwood tree here on my side, and then I ended up catching another tree in the same spot that stopped me. I kind of twisted my knee a little bit. No big deal. My adrenaline was pumping like crazy. I was with my buddy Jared. He's like, "You all right?" And I'm like, yeah, I got to get down the mountain. So I was able to ski down the mountain.
Dude, holy shit.
But when I got to the lodge, he's like, "We got to get out of here." I said, "Yeah, we got to get out of here." So I was able to get my clothes off. Very, very slow process. And I could feel myself getting real tight. And we were at Loon, about a 3-hour drive home. And as we're driving home and my adrenaline was going down, I went to like move to like sit up and reposition myself, and I couldn't move. And I was like, I think I'm fucked. So I didn't have any injuries, luckily, aside from a bunch of internal bleeding. I went to the trauma unit.
No injuries, just internal bleeding.
Well, nothing was broken.
I get it, yeah.
Well, have you ever been to a trauma unit? Either one of you guys ever been to a trauma unit?
Just a regular emergency room.
So I've been a small handful of times, and it is crazy. It's like a NASCAR. Like the NASCAR goes into the pit? Yeah. It's like a pit crew, right? So I'm fully dressed, like immobile. You get on the bed, and then like this, you're naked, then you're in a Johnny, and then you're hooked up to a tube. And it's all of a sudden just like, holy shit, what just happened?
Not messing around.
Yeah. It's just so cool. But anyway, they ended up doing a CAT scan. And, a CAT scan is basically vertical shots of your anatomy. So they're looking basically down at my torso. And you could see my spinal column, and you could see my left erector, which is nice, clear, grayish hue. And then my right erector was completely black. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's all blood. And I was like, holy shit. But the guy told me, he said, I know you're, and I was really worried because I couldn't walk. Yeah. And I was like, I know I'm going to be able to walk one day again, but like, how long am I going to be off my feet for? This is really bad. And he said, dude, honestly, he's like, he's like, as bad as it is, once this blood drains and the inflammation goes down, he's like, you're going to be all right. Yeah. He's like, I'm telling you. And the next day, I was able to wake up and get myself to the bathroom, peed a little blood, no big deal. But I was moving again within a week, but I was very inflamed and there was a ton of crazy bruising. So I couldn't use a belt because the pressure really bothered me. So I had a show in like a month or something, and training was going really well up to that point. So I kind of got back into training beltless. And 2 weeks out from the show, I put my belt on for the first time. And when I reached down to grab a deadlift, I went to pull it with the constraint of the belt. And because I was so inflamed, I popped a rib and strained a bunch of intercostals.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you've ever done that before.
Oh, yeah.
That's such a shit injury.
It's fucking so stupid.
You can't immobilize it. You can't, and then, God forbid you sneeze or laugh. You literally want to turn a gun on yourself. It's brutal. Yeah. But basically, I have been skiing half a dozen times since, but I'm a much different skier than I was. I used to be a friggin' maniac. And I do really enjoy it, but we just haven't been up. Really, we had intentions to go up this year, but Jen's hip has gotten really bad, and she would have had a miserable time, which means I would have had a miserable time. So we just haven't gone up this year, not yet.
Were you wearing a helmet when you wiped out?
No, and
so that was the thing. I used to never wear one, and then Michelle made me.
Well, this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up because this is probably the most important aspect of this entire story. So I bought when I started skiing like a real nutbag with my buddies when I first got my first set of twin, because I used ski blades for the longest time.
I still have mine, yeah.
Yeah, and then I started getting into much bigger mountains, doing a lot of glade skiing and deeper powder, and those things are useless because they have no surface area. So we were up at Sunday River, I think, years ago, or maybe Bretton Woods. And I was just having the worst time because I was with all my buddy on boards and we're going down these beautiful trails with thick powder and they're just floating over top of it.
And you're stuck.
And I'm just stuck.
Yeah.
And one of the times I got stuck and fell on my ass, I went to sit up and these two dudes with these big, long, thick twin tips went past me, just standing straight up and just floating right over it on their skis. And I was like, motherfucker. So I went down to the
pro
ski
shop,
lodge, and I was like, I just want a big pair of twin tip skis, and they had this pig hat. So I rented the skis and I bought this pig hat, and every time I skied, I always wore my pig hat, and I skied like a complete maniac for like 7-8 years, absolute maniac. Me and my buddies I live with this kid Forrest who went to Plymouth State in New Hampshire. So he skied like 80 days a year, or snowboarded 80 days a year. He was a very, 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 very talented snowboarder. One of the best that I've ever ridden with. We actually went down the park and I would follow him down the park. So we'd be hitting jumps and we'd be in the air and he'd be like right in front of me. I could reach out and touch him. And he'd be throwing like misty flips and like 720s, like looking at me while I was doing it. Insane. Jesus. And so this kid skied and snowboarded a lot. And we went down to the lodge after the afternoon and he was sitting there and he had this like wicked exhausted, it looks like he just saw a ghost. I'm like, you all right for us? And he's like, I've been skiing for like 15 years. He's like, I have never skied so fast in my life. He's like, you guys are fucking animals. But the point is, I always wore this pig hat. And a client of mine, I really like the Minions. Do you guys watch the Minions?
I've never seen Minions.
You're missing out on some low-hanging fruit, bro. Okay. It is. Do you find them as entertaining as I do?
Oh, yeah.
I think they're the most entertaining Pixar, if it even is Pixar. It's so funny, and they're adorable, and they speak this like language that's like a cross between English, Japanese, Spanish. Like they speak in gibberish, but you know what they're saying. Yeah. They're hilarious. So I love the Minions. Okay. And one of my clients, this girl Tara, I guess thought that was the funniest thing in the world. She bought me a Minion hat. Mm-hmm. So that day that I crashed, I wore that Minion hat for the first time. So it's like a bad omen.
It's a curse.
It's a bad omen. Yeah. So that's probably really why it happened. So ever since then, I've worn my pig hat.
Okay. Yeah.
No helmet though.
I do the helmet.
Still no helmet.
I love it though.
I don't need one. I got my pig hat.
I did buy a helmet this year.
Oh, I was
proud of myself.
Michelle won't let me ski with that one now.
I've heard too many horror stories. Is my thing.
I just think like when we were in Switzerland last year for honeymoon. Like I looked back at my stats at the start of this season. I'm like, I wonder how fast I went last year, and it was literally 50 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and I was like, if I eat shit at this is going to really.
If you do what he did,
yeah.
Well, you know,
I grew up skiing like boarding without a helmet.
You know, I mean, you can definitely whack your head, but you know, falling like that, that's why it's really changed the way that I ski, because I'd fallen like that, you know, probably a dozen times.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean, you know, there's inherent danger in everything you do, especially, you know, skiing and snowboarding is extremely dangerous. But the thing is, like, you fall on your ass, you slide, you get slowed down, you pop back up, you're okay. But the thing is like, you know, I mean, that fall happened in the middle of a big trail, and I slid across the trail and flew into the woods. I mean, that could have happened countless times in the past. So it just kind of creates a new perspective, you know. You just sometimes you need, you know, I think as men, that's how we learn, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you know, you need that catastrophic occurrence to finally hopefully make you reevaluate a bit and act like a mature adult.
Slows you down a little. Yeah.
yeah.
But you know, now it's equally as enjoyable. Now it's kind of, rather than just being an animal and getting my adrenaline pumping like crazy, now I just kind of enjoy it. You know, I kind of I carve a little harder. I kind of look around a bit more. Put some music on, and it's kind of like a chill, calming
like
endeavor.
Meditation almost.
Absolutely.
You know.
It used to serve as a way for me to, like, you know, scratch my adrenaline junkie itch, but now it's actually quite the opposite when I do go up. So it's you know, it's one of those things that I'm really glad I put the time in and really learned how to do it, because it's something I can always do. It's a great thing to do with, you know, Jenny. Yeah. You know, that's something that we can do together. That's a great time, and it's you know, it's 2-3 hours away, and it's such a nice thing to do for a weekend. You know, get away for a bit. So we'll be back up once our hips are healthy for sure.
Nice. Yeah, we have to connect in that at some point.
Hopefully, no episodes.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah. No, I just don't ride like that anymore. It's not worth it.
No.
Well, with that, let's wrap it up. We'll go and film some content.
Sure.
And I'm sure we'll do this again.
I look forward to it.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.